Good morning, everyone.
Hello there.
Often in our conversations, the whole thing of listening to your inner voice, listening to your soul, listening to your bigger or larger self, listening to your God self, that surfaces. And these last few weeks, often we've touched on it.
Yeah.
Where we touched about self-worth, touched on self-worth and to dare and
To be vulnerable.
and to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
All of this somehow often return to the issue of the inner voice. The inner voice guiding us. When we are able to tap into that, to respond to that, it knows what we need. And if we can do that, it's of an immense help and growth. That said, how do you do it?
Yeah. I think it's very confusing for us as humans, and as far as we know, we are the only species that have that, where we have a consciousness of that there are more me's than just one. So we have the inner witness that can almost look at us from a distance and say, so there you angry about this again, why is that, and sort of talk to you. And then we have the critic, and then the ego, the scared voices,
Or the super ego,
the
parent voice.
So there's voices constantly. Our bodies can be a voice in the way that it speaks to us, and so we have all of these. It's almost like a choir that's going on, and which one is that voice? Which one is the voice? Let's call it the voice of God speaking through your ego. Not your ego, your deeper self, the Holy Spirit whispering. So and I think for us as humans, it's really difficult because the one can shout very hard, and usually the critic, the scared ego voices shout really hard, and the more a soul message comes to the fore, the more scared the ego becomes and the harder they shout. So it's really something to look at. How do we go about to be more in touch with our inner knowings?
Because what we are actually saying is, it is a very wise guide. And when we are able to touch into our deep soul voice, we tap into a deeper knowing and a wisdom that's beyond the general wisdom.
And it's not our wisdom, and there's safety there because it's much larger than we are or our fears are. Okay, so we're talking about that. So in the Afrikaans version, I had to tell you how in a situation where I had to make choices, and
So now you know how to do it.
Now I know how to do it. Now I'm asking you. Let's see if you also know the answer. So it's a good one, eh? In circumstances where you had to make a big decision or were in life circumstances, how did you go about to know what your inner voice was saying?
Okay. I think on a very practical level, looking back on my life and choices that I've made, the one thing is that voice coming to me and leading me to the next step, which can be very frightening, can be
disruptive.
Yeah. It didn't come only then. It came over a long period. I would say in my case, for more than 10 years, it came through in a lot of ways, in a sense of a weight that I carry in myself. A heaviness, a lack of creativity,
Would
a
you say
bleakness,
a feeling of a void?
yes, a longing for more. Despite very good conditions, that voice nagging me constantly over many years. And it was there. But then looking at my situation and saying, well, everything is fine. It's just me with a bee in my bonnet.
So not trusting the voice.
No,
Yeah.
no. Get over it. You're just being difficult. But that voice didn't relent. It kept on coming, kept on coming. And gradually my body played into the voice. It was the strangest thing. I mean, at university and after that, starting to work as a dominee, it was very much a mind thing that I was involved with. And then all of a sudden, and it really blindsided me, my body came into play. And the body almost said to me, well, you two can carry on. You can have all your meetings and all of that. Fine, but we're not involved. We're not involved. There's this deep sense of wanting to work with my hands, wanting to be creative. And it's almost as if the body pushed itself to the fore. And it wasn't sudden.
No, and would you say that you actually knew that the voice was telling you what you need to do, but you and you weren't trusting it in the first place, and you were pushing it away all the time?
I think that, but there was also synchronicities and things coming together where I couldn't take the step because I didn't have at that stage all the material, because I discovered contemplative spirituality and that opened a door. Previously, I didn't know contemplative spirituality.
But that was, I think, already a step in answering the voice.
Yes.
Wasn't it? It was like,
yes.
Okay, there is more. I need to find the more. I need to go on this journey. I need to start looking. But I think what you're saying is that the voice is not a new thing generally.
No.
We start hearing it very early on. Things doesn't add up for you anymore. You live with those things, and like you say, you think, it's just me, but it doesn't. That keeps on coming back, keeps on nagging. And it's different from the critical voice or the ego or the scared voice, in that it pushes you, it sort of stretches you, and you feel this is going to change everything, and I'm not up to this. Or
I'm irresponsible.
You can really feel like you because you grow up and you're in a culture, you're in an environment, people around you tell you it's irresponsible, it's not rational, and all of that, and it even to yourself, a lot of times going along with this deeper knowing almost can feel very insecure and scary. So I think on the one hand that we acknowledge that the voice, that we actually know of the voice, and we often know what it is telling us, and we don't want to go there because it feels like it will take too much of it.
Yeah, and often, as is contemplative spirituality, it is often counterintuitive and it is countercultural. I don't want to give a bland rule and say it's always like that. I mean, it can come in different forms, but in general, because our ego is often so scared that it constantly pushes it down. And I have to say, in my case, what was even more difficult was the fact that I'm a head type on the Enneagram. Working everything out and thinking it through and be prepared and everything. And in the end, I couldn't listen to the voice of reason.
Yeah, that must have been really scary. But I think also we need to say that all of this listening to the voice, is again coming from a place where you are living in a certain way, where you are searching, where you really want to know, where you really want to hear. And then, in a way, life often brings us to those places.
Yes.
If we don't act on it, often life will like Jung says, it will appear as destiny. So if we need to go there, and especially if we're on this journey where we say we want to be on this journey, then life will take you there. But I think also a very important thing is to have what we often talk about is your spiritual practice.
Yeah. And coming into the practicality of my own journey, once I got contemplative spirituality, that enhanced the process, because then I had a daily practice where I made the chatter in my head quiet.
Yeah. And you were refining your spiritual ears, because that's what happens when we let go of our controlling mind and all of those thoughts. And whether we're doing creativity, whether we're in nature, whether we're praying, sitting in meditation, those are the things that build the new brain paths that makes us more sensitive to the inner voice.
Exactly.
And that has been scientifically proven.
Yeah. And I think if one reaches such a stage where this voice is really strong and you have to be in a discernment process, it helps to go to a spiritual director who also listens and who is actually trained and equipped to listen with you to this voice.
Yeah, and I think you were touching on that. Really important to listen to your body.
Yes.
What is my body saying? How is it pushing back? How is it getting ill? How is it acting out? And what is it telling me? Because that's also part of the inner voice.
So, as we always say, we can't promise that we won't return to this subject. Often it's like orbiting and coming back.
Please tell us if we're boring.
Yeah, but we know we have to revisit, and it's important to talk to each other about this. I think it helps. Thank you for the feedback. And we talk again next week.
Goodbye, everyone.